This is episode 15 with Jairek Robbins. Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. All right, welcome back to another episode of Self-Made Man, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I have a really special guest for you that is going to deliver an unbelievable amount of value, and I believe we're going to be discussing a topic that can change your life starting today, and it's going to be at the heart of accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish in life. And to help us do that, I have Jairek Robbins on the line with us today. So, Jairek, thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. I remember seeing you on stage speak at an event that I was at a couple of years ago, which was awesome, and then heard you on Lewis Howes's podcast a couple of months ago, and it was just absolutely amazing content, and so grateful that you've taken the time to join us here today to speak to the Self-Made Man audience. And so thanks for coming on.
Of course. It's a pleasure. Anytime I get to share our message with the world, I'm always up for it.
So today I wanted to tackle a topic that, I know it haunts me off and on throughout different stages of my life in the year, and I'm sure it is a struggle for a lot of other people out there as well, especially entrepreneurs. So we're going to dive into the topic of discipline and self-discipline, and this is something that I know I need and I would like to have more of in my life, and yet I don't know the science behind discipline, specifically where it comes from. And so that's really what I wanted to dive in with you today, because if we can decode that and figure out the art of bringing more discipline into our lives, that's going to allow us to accomplish more of our goals and really build the life that we want. So I would love to just really turn it over to you at this point, and we'll see where this goes. And if you can help myself and our audience bring more discipline into our lives here with our time today, that would be absolutely amazing.
Sure. With the thought process of discipline, it really comes down to just understanding all the different layers that exist in this. I mean, if you want to start at the simplest yet most difficult to consistently apply layer, it's self-will. It's saying, I want to do that, and I'm literally just going to will myself, force myself, shove myself, jar myself into it, and I will not stop until completion, period. And you hear, someone like Will Smith on the interview where he's like, hey, if we both got on a treadmill, either I would die or I would win. Mm-hmm. And it's someone who has that much willpower, that much hunger, that much drive, that they're willing to push through pain, push through uncertainty, push consistently. When they don't feel like it, when they feel like it, it doesn't matter. They just have the mental willpower that they lock on and they don't stop. And so if you start with that layer, that one, it's easy enough to say. Some people have it and some people don't.
Okay, so is it as simple as that? Or if you don't have it, or maybe if Will Smith is a level 10 out of 10 and maybe, I'm at a 5 right now, is that the result of habitual, let's say, thought patterns, habits, physical habits on a daily basis that add up over time? Is discipline, I guess the question is discipline the result of small incremental habits over time?
So that's a different layer. But if we were to start with this layer, so yes, that's one layer as well, which is habits and patterns and rituals and how do you build it in. But to start with just the really simple, imagine have you ever seen what's it called? Like a Post-it notepad. You know how if you grab a Post-it notepad and you flip it and there's a million little Post-it notes that create the stack?
Sure.
We're at the very, very base little Post-it on the bottom.
Okay.
So there's lots of these that are coming. But if we start with just that, and we can say, hey, some people have it and some people don't. How do you know if you have it? Because if I looked you straight in the face and I said, I don't think you have it, you would know if you have it or not. Okay. Because for every single one of these people listening, if I said to you right now, you personally listening to this podcast, I don't know you, I don't know anything about you, all I know is you don't have what it takes. The people who have it would almost laugh because they know they have it. And it's that attitude. It's a genuine mix between ego, like a healthy amount of ego, a healthy amount of personal belief in themselves, a healthy amount of experience of knowing they've done it before. And they have reference points in their history that said, hey, when I say something, I do it. Now, the reason I bring this up as the very beginning point is they've had patterns in the past when they've successfully done this. Everyone has, but their mindset first goes to the pattern when they've succeeded first, meaning they have a healthy amount of personal ego and personal belief within themselves, so that when you say you don't have it, immediately their mindset goes straight back to a time when they did and it worked, and they say, yeah, I do, and I'm getting it. So it starts with that core belief of if you have it or not. For the other people who are like, shit, I guess the guy's right, I must not have it, they're missing that first layer. And that first layer is finding references in your life when it's worked out. Finding references that not only like, oh yeah, I guess it kind of worked out, maybe I got lucky, but references where you're like, no, I had will right there. I got myself to do it. I believed in myself. I pushed through. I wanted to give up so many freaking times, but I didn't, and I made it through. That little belief you have to get very closely associated to.
I understand how that feels when I ask myself that question. If you were going to ask me the question, Mike, are you going to be successful in your next business? The answer is by default, instantly, without any form of doubt, yes. And because I have so much evidence to back that up, and I've done it so many times. So I personally can understand exactly what you're talking about from that reference standpoint. So that makes a ton of sense.
So that's that very first layer. Like, do you have references to be successful at this area called discipline? And is it the first place your mind goes? Have you trained yourself? So talking of habits, do you have the habit that when someone says you need to get something done, or you say you want to get something done, the very first place you go is a time in your mind when you've done it successfully before, and you literally start thinking through the steps of how you did it before and start laying them in place to do it again. And so that's first piece. Now from there, if that's like the very thin layer, the next layer comes down to your identity, which stacks with this layer. It kind of like fits in. If it's Legos, it's that next piece that clicks in with this piece. And your identity is who you believe you are. And this goes with that same belief. If I said, are you someone who's disciplined? You either have an identity with many references and many beliefs that support it that say, yeah, I'm a disciplined person. Or you have an identity that you go, no, I'm not. And this identity is, people will go so far out of their way in their life to stay consistent with who they believe they are. And how you see this true and where this, comes to fruition in life, if you watch closely, watch someone who believes they're a smoker. Watch someone who believes they're an alcoholic. Watch someone who believes they're an overeater. Anytime someone has an identity that's associated to something that they're trying to get rid of or trying to push away from, they'll always find a way back over time until they change the identity. And so what happens is with the identity aspect, there's multiple ways to change someone's identity. I guess if I were to start and just name some off for you, number one, get an experience that violates your old identity. Meaning if you said, I'm a lazy person, I'm not disciplined, go enroll in a boot camp for 3 weeks. Like, you'll get a whole different version of yourself by force in the beginning. But by the end of that boot camp, you'll be like, dude, I'm more disciplined than 97% of my friends. Yeah, there's still 3% that can kick my butt, but 97%, I own them. Because you have an experience that literally violates your identity. I had one of these in my own life. And I remember I was a guy who never liked to get up early. Never. The alarm would go off. I'd roll over. I'd be like, bah, like not getting up. No way. You'd have to fight me up. Like I wasn't all about it. And where this identity started to shift for me was we had boot camp per se in high school. I joined the football team, and every single morning before school at 6 a.m., we had 6 a.m. practice or 6 a.m. weights. So we'd go back and forth between practice and weights. And all of a sudden, there was something I wanted to do that gave me a new identity. I was an athlete now. I was a football player. I made the team. And now in order to be consistent with that new identity, I had to become disciplined enough to wake up, get ready, and get 20 minutes to school and arrive prior to 6 a.m. every single day, 5 days a week. And because I wanted to be this new identity so bad, I had to stick with it. And I found a way to get up. I found a way to show up. They also had something, there's two more layers that exist in this, and I'll get to them later, but the two layers are 1, peer group, and 2, consequences. but rewinding just to this identity of an athlete, showing up on time just to be able to be part of the team, to be part of this identity, I had to live by certain rules. And so that's a way to do it too. Join a community, and I'll go to the next layer, I guess, stack that piece on. Join a community that raises the standard of what the community identity is. Like if you want to get in shape, go join a community of bodybuilders. If you're not a bodybuilder and they see you slacking off, like there's a problem. You don't fit into this community. They're not going to let you just sit around and not be one of them if you're going to call yourself part of them, if that makes sense. It's like there's rituals, there's things you got to do, there's ways you got to show up to be part of that. Right. Rewinding back to identity, a couple more ways to shift an identity. I guess one would be as simple as anytime you catch yourself doing something right, celebrate it like crazy. And this term might be familiar to some if you're in the personal development, might be totally foreign to others, but you want to anchor it in. Anchoring in the simplest form is if you remember the music that was playing the first time you ever made love or had a kiss or fell in love, that one song, even though it might be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from that moment, if I played that song right now, it would set off an anchor or a trigger in your nervous system that would take you back to that moment, good or bad. And so every time you catch yourself doing something right, put on a certain music that you celebrate to and anchor that music in where it becomes your trigger of like, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. You play that one song only when you do it really well. Make a movement with your body that feels really good and powerful and kind of like, yes, I did it. You know, come up with a phrase that you say to yourself, like, oh, I'm a champion, whatever that phrase is for you, and mix all three of these together, a movement, a phrase, and a certain like music and song. And all of a sudden, this becomes your trigger that every time you do something right, you do this little movement, that phrase, and this music, and bingo, pretty soon, you'll start to train yourself. All you do is turn that music on and it'll put you right back into this place where you become a quote unquote disciplined person. But you have to do it many times at a very, very strong place for it to start to link up. The more emotion you add to it and the more intensity you add to it, the faster it links up in your nervous system. And one other way to switch your identity, I mean, there's 8 of these, but here's one more. Provide a really, really, really compelling future. So when you think of who you are what life is like when you are this new identity of yourself, someone who is disciplined, when you think of what's life like, you want to create a vision that's so compelling and so rich and so real and so amazing out in front of you in future years that it's so exciting that you want that more than anything. And you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. So that first layer, you have it or you don't. You have those beliefs, those references. The second layer, your identity has to link up to it. The third layer, peer group. You need to get around a peer group who is disciplined. That joke about joining a boot camp, seriously, go join a boot camp. If you don't have one near you, create one and lead it. And what's interesting is being in proximity with people who are really, truly disciplined will cause you to become more disciplined. I had a time in my life, again, where even after high school, I got into college. I had my own time, got up, did whatever I wanted. And by that time, when I got to college, I had built up the discipline over 4 years of high school football to where every morning I'd get up at 6 a.m. and run and work out. So it was amazing. It carried on for like 6 years, and then it slowly started to fade. And I remember, when it was fading, I took this crazy challenge from my dad. He wanted me to learn better work ethic. So I moved up to Canada and spent 3 months stacking lumber at a lumber yard. And part of it was I had to get up at 4. They wanted me to get up at 5 in the morning, get to the side of the freeway by 5:30, get picked up at 6 by a group of workers, drive an hour to the lumber yard, stack lumber all day, which if you've ever done it, bless your soul. It is not the most engaging activity in the world, but I had to learn how to love it somehow and stick with it for 3 months, 6 days a week, and then drive home a couple hours in the van, get side of the freeway, drive back home, go to bed. And so, funny story, but my dad, my step-grandfather, and my uncle were making bets on how many days I would last because they thought I'd wimp out and want to quit. And so I overheard them making a bet, and I got pissed. So I decided to show all of them how strong I was. So I got up at 4:30 in the morning, worked out for a half hour, then got ready, then went and stacked lumber all day, then came home, went straight back to the gym and worked out for another half hour lifting weights, before then passing out doing it again 6 days a week.
Wow.
And so in that, it came down to drive, peer group, I had to be somewhere again at a certain time. Otherwise, there was discipline. And it wasn't just discipline on me. Everyone would pay the price. And if that group of workers was late too many times, they would all get fired. So I had, 12 people's jobs on the line, not just mine.
Right.
And so that peer group, that standard of I have to show up, there is no excuse. The secondary problem there, if they pulled to the side of the freeway and I wasn't there, they would just keep driving. And now I'd have to figure out how to get myself an hour up the freeway.
Right. Serious consequences.
Consequence again. And that pressure of the peer group. The other factor there, though, was remember, there was a drive. I was trying to prove something. Part of that driver kicked in where now I had a reason why I was doing this to prove to them, which is our next layer. So peer group, then you jump up, you have consequences or a negative situation that can employ that can cause that negative feeling or cause that consequence. That the piece after that is finding a bigger reason why to work for. And one thing to remember in this area is people will do more to gain pleasure than they will to avoid pain. And this flip-flops. In the beginning, they'll do more to avoid pain than they will for pleasure. Meaning the spark, the initial kickstart. We read about this in the book I wrote last year, what we call creating your emotional rocket fuel. And if you think about it like a sports car, or actually, if you've seen the movie The Fast and the Furious, here's a great example. When they're racing, that little button they have on their steering wheel that's nitrous oxide or NOS, when you press that button, if you've ever seen the movie, the car like shoots off like rocket speed into the race. Now, what's interesting is it causes you to go at extraordinary speeds for very short distances. Because if you only filled your gas tank with nitrous oxide and turned on your engine and that's all it's running on, you'd blow up your engine. Same thing goes in the human body. Nitrous oxide is the equivalent of pain. You can use pain as a point to drive you forward for short bursts of time. But after a while, if you continue to only use pain as your reason why, meaning because something negative happened, you're trying to avoid it, or because, if you don't do something, there's so much future pain in the future of not following through that's going to hurt so bad that you're trying to avoid it. That pain can only drive you for short bursts of time at very high intensity. After that, it starts to literally break apart your internal engine or break apart you as a person. And you see this over time. Someone who's been riding years and years and years off of pain, if you sit down and have a serious conversation with them and really pick them apart, you can see how they've literally torn themselves to shreds on the inside of who they are. They're kind of a hollow person. Another example of this would be if you've ever chopped lumber. They were joking with me when I was at that lumber yard. They gave me an axe and told me to go chop down this tree, and it was a big tree. And I took this huge swing at it, and the axe literally went right through the tree and flipped out the other side. I almost killed myself.
Wow.
And they were all laughing at me because on the outside of the tree, the bark looked super hard. It looked like a gigantic tree. I was going to have to work really hard to cut down. But over the years, termites and bugs and stuff had infested it inside of it and ate it away. And it was actually a hollow tree. And there's people out there who are like that. They've allowed pain to drive their life for so long that they've actually become hollow emotionally and physically.
So what if you are acquiring what appears to be pleasure from something that can be destructive? And two examples that come to mind immediately are cigarettes or alcohol.
There's so many different thoughts here. I have my BA in psychology, and so studying the origin of thought and emotion and feeling and all this stuff has always been fascinating to me. And there's so many different ways to explain that to someone. The simplest form my dad actually created, which was the 6 human needs. And when someone is addicted to doing something that's negatively affecting them, like I've never sat down with an alcoholic and they've been like, oh, I think it's really good for my health.
Right.
Or someone who's smoking, like most of them say, like, no, I know I should quit, but it's my thing,
Right.
Like they all know. It's not like an epiphany, like, holy smokes, I didn't know it was killing me. They all know. So it's not the logical thought that makes that difference, but they're meeting their needs. And so my dad broke down, if you want, Google 6 human needs, they'll come up. There's 6 of them all together. There's certainty, variety, significance, contribution, love, and growth. And between those needs, these people are meeting their needs. And the rule is anytime you meet any 3 of these 6 needs at a level 5 or higher emotionally, like 0 to 10, how do you feel? And you say 5 or higher, it becomes an emotional addiction. So when you talk to anyone who's meeting their needs through something that's actually tearing them apart, or someone who's gaining pleasure out of something that's tearing them apart, it's just because it meets their needs.
So how would you start down that if someone is, addicted to a self-destructive habit, basically because it's meeting those needs? How do you start to deconstruct that process and get out of it?
So work backwards from our layers.
Okay.
Number one, you got to pick a time in their life when they've done it successfully, because I guarantee everyone's quit something or started something successfully in their life. Everyone. If they can't think of anything, be like, do you walk? There you go. You figured something out in life. So if you learned how to walk, let's rewind. How in the hell did you do it? There, you figured it out. You came up with a formula, and let's see what the formula was. As simple as it may be, you gave it a shot. It didn't work. You tried again. It didn't work. You tried again. It didn't work. You tried again. You didn't work. Persistence pays. There you go. Persistence. And let's just use that formula right there. So let's assume you're going to fail quitting smoking. You're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to try, you're going to fail. Done. Now we know a formula. Based on that formula, we think of many more references. So where else have you succeeded? Did you learn how to run? Yeah. How'd you learn how to run? It wasn't the same. You didn't try and fail, right? What did you do? You saw someone else run. Oh, you modeled somebody. You learned from someone else's experience. Great. Let's find someone else who quit smoking and let's figure out what their experience was and how they did it. Now let's keep going. Where else have you succeeded in life? Oh my gosh, you have an amazing family. You've raised incredible kids. How did you do it? Well, I had this deep reason why that was compelling me, and this deep reason why it caused me to follow through even when I didn't feel like it. Days I wanted to kill the little SOBs, I kept loving them because I knew I wanted them to be great people. So you had a reason bigger than yourself to fight for. Great, let's add that into your formula. And as you rehash their formulas with them in all areas of life, you'll start to see a set of steps that exist that they've already had success with in their own personal life. Once you have that formula and you hash it out with them and get clear and you both agree it's going to work, now you take action on that. But then you jump to the second level. One. So two is you help them figure out, I guess we'll skip a few, but you help them get that identity. Who are they going to be when they let go of this? Now, sometimes that's a scary thought because this person might have been a smoker for 47 years of their life. And now it's like, I don't know who I am without that. I don't know who I am. Okay, we're going to have to create an identity. Let's think of one. Another way to violate that identity, give you an experience that violates it. So let's have you pick up a sport that would be hard as hell to do being a smoker. Actually, let's help you pick up a sport, or let's help you pick up a hobby that smoking would be like the furthest thing from. Let's turn you into a marathon runner. I don't know many marathon runners that smoke because it's very difficult on the oxygen levels to run when you have smoker's cough and you have tough time breathing and that kind of stuff that pops up. Or let's turn you into high altitude, hiker. Let's get you to climb mountains. Let's get you to do something that takes an accelerated heart rate and breath schedule to get you to the place where you have never been before, but it's going to violate the identity of being a smoker, and it'll tick off more of these boxes. It'll create a peer group where smoking is not even tolerated. I've never been around a group of distance runners who talk about smoking on, after practice. They do drink, so you might get another bad habit, but they don't smoke. And then you keep going down that same list. One piece that I mentioned here, which is the next kind of stacking Lego per se, is finding a reason bigger than yourself to do it for. As much as us self-willful, disciplined human beings think we have willpower, when you're doing it for something more than yourself, a family member, a friend, someone who means something to you, someone you really care about, you'll do so much more for them than you ever will just for you. So finding that piece of leverage. Now, if you want to get to the tactical aspect of this, there's a great book called The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg, I think it was.
Okay.
And he talks about the fact that every single habit is three parts: a trigger, like we talked about, a routine that you go through, and then a reward for doing it. And so talking about quitting smoking specifically, and then we'll talk about building willpower as well. But quitting smoking specifically, I did a little episode on our YouTube show about this, and my little cousin happened to watch it, which I didn't know she even watches our show. But she tuned in. And she was staying at my grandma's house. She was going through a tough time. And I got a call from my grandma about 2 weeks later. And she said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you. You helped your little cousin quit smoking." I was like, "Really? How?" I didn't even know what I did. And I guess she watched the episode she figured out what the pattern was. She figured out what was the trigger, what was the cue that set her off to want to go smoke. And it was whenever she got too stressed. So she'd be working, all of a sudden feel slightly overwhelmed. And the moment that emotion kicked in, that was her trigger to stand up and go for the door and go outside to go smoke a cigarette. So she said, there's my trigger. She said, what's the routine? Well, I go outside, I pull out the cigarette, I light it this way, I smoke it this way, I stand here like this, I do my puffs all the way till it's done, I relax, I look out at the sun, I look out at the scenery, and then I go back inside. And then what's the reward? I feel more relaxed and I'm not stressed anymore. And now I have a clear mind that I can focus on working with. Interesting. So she said, okay, what else could I do to replace the routine, but give me the exact same reward from this process? So she said, hey, I used to love to run when I was, a teenager. She goes, how about that? I'm going to put my running shoes near the door. So whenever I get stressed, I'm going to be going towards the door anyways, like I'm going to go smoke. Instead of smoking, I'll put my running shoes on and I'll take 4 laps around the block. And I'll do what I did when I was smoking. So I'll take deep breaths. I'll look at the scenery. I'll notice life. I'll clear my mind. I'll do everything I did when I was smoking, except for I won't smoke. I'll just move and I'll kind of jog and breathe. And that's it. And then she came back and she got the exact same reward minus any of the negative aspects on her health. And all of a sudden, it took her 3 days of doing it and she stopped smoking for good.
Wow. That's awesome. And
yeah, simple as that. So coming back to discipline, what's a trigger that could set off or remind you or put you into motion or, gain some momentum in this thing called discipline in your life? Whatever you want to be disciplined about, what's a trigger that could set off the routine? Think about it. Is it a song? Is it like just saying, hey, stay focused and slapping it on a sticky note on your computer? Is it a certain place you go? Using spatial anchoring by using a certain environment that this is the only thing you do when you're there. I remember working with a writing coach when I wanted to write a book. And she told me you have to create a space in your home or your office that is only for writing. It is the physiological only thing you do in that space. That is it. She wanted me to have an outfit, a hat, a certain pen, a certain everything. Everything had to be only for writing in that place. Why? Because it became a physical anchor that whenever I entered that space, my body went into the routine. Now we do that for meditation in our home. We do that for where we work. We do that for our bed. Nothing happens except very specific things in all these locations so that our body does not get confused when we're in those places.
Interesting. So let me ask you a question on that. I have my work at home office, which is basically where I live every single day. And I do everything from this desk, where I'm recording this now. And I have a stand-up desk that I can put up and down, but pretty much I'm in here, 8 or 9 hours a day doing everything from writing to recording podcasts to making phone calls to dealing with challenges and problems to paying bills to opening the mail to really anything that I do during my waking hours outside of exercise. So are there conflicts or negative pieces of performance that are coming into that because I'm doing everything in the same exact environment?
Of course. Let me give you a better example that might be more potent for people. So that one's hard to decipher because it's like, well, where else could I do and how else could it work? So imagine people who watch TV in bed. You lay down in bed, you watch TV. You're training your body to be entertained while in this position and think about whatever marketers or, people doing giant commercials want you to think about and whatever shows you're tuning into. You also want your body to sleep and go into deep, deep, deep relaxation in this space. You also wanted to hopefully, have sex and make love to someone in this space. You also want to, God knows what else you do in bed, read. Mm-hmm. If you make a list of all the things someone's trying to do in bed, and then you wonder why, erectile dysfunction is such a big problem. You go lie down in bed and it's like, well, your body's like, am I reading? Am I laughing? Am I watching a commercial? Am I sleeping? Like, I don't know what to do. And if you link up that to, this is very potent for men to think about. Normally it catches their attention.
Right.
If you think about it, you've just confused your body. A beautiful, I don't know what your preference is, woman or man comes into bed with you and you look over and nothing happens. And you're like, come on, pal, like perk up. And all you've done is confuse your body. So physiologically, it's not linked up to like, hey, here's what I'm supposed to do when I'm in this spot. So if you take away all the distraction, you're like, hey, I sleep here, I make love here, and that's it. Now it's very easy. You're doing one of two things, and your body knows exactly where to go the moment you arrive. Another area where this makes sense is when you train an athlete, and we have experience training with the rowers, the jumpers, the runners in the Olympics. And when I lived in San Diego, we used to go visit them all the time and work with them on their mindset. And imagine training a high jumper mentally, but having them mentally rehearse all day long rowing. Like that makes no sense whatsoever because they're training their body to do one thing and their mind to do another. Now, come back to your example within the office. Yes, ideally, what you want to do is create specific locations for specific tasks and activities so that it automatically triggers you to go into those routines when you're in those places. So ideally, that's the perfect world. You'd separate your podcast station slightly from your, writing station, and your writing station slightly from your handling people station. And how you do that? Because some people are like, well, good for you, dude. If you can have 4 offices, awesome. I can't. So one way to do that would literally be spatial anchoring. It'd be if you have a swivel chair, setting it up so maybe you literally turn your chair to the left and look out the window while you're doing a podcast recording. You look straight at your computer and face your computer directly when you're doing your writing. And you turn your chair to your right and look out the door, look out the other window or the wall or whatever's there when you're handling people. And what you're doing, again, is you're using your spatial anchors, meaning specific locations doing specific things to cause your mind and body to go into a routine that's set up in that space. If you take the biggest way we get athletes to perform at their best is we train them to do consistent routines, meaning we train them in segments. We train a hurdle jumper. There's a specific routine you go through to take your first step out of the gate. There's a specific routine you go through from that first step to the step, and the first step you take all the way up into the first hurdle when you're going to go over it. There's a specific first hurdle routine, second hurdle routine, third hurdle routine. But the most important routine of the whole sprint is the moment your foot touches down after the last hurdle, from there to the finish line is the most important routine. And so we train them in chunks. And the same thing throughout your day. If you train it in chunks and you use different chunks throughout what it is you do, you'll see more effectiveness show up and hence more discipline, to come back to that original thought. So using that 3-part system for creating a habit, what's a trigger that could cause you to go into a disciplined routine? What's a routine that you want to get yourself to be disciplined about? And what reward are you going to get from doing it? And if you can identify those 3 pieces and then run that systematically, you'll start to see yourself build this habit. Now, how you make it stick faster is by adding more emotion to it and by adding more intensity to it. And it causes it to stick. The thought process behind this is there's something called neuroplasticity, which is how fast our brain is able to adapt a new habit, routine, thought, process, or practice. And it's how well the mind forms new neurological connections over time. And as we get older, our neuroplasticity tends to go down. The younger we are, the faster we can pick up new things. But there's research that shows when you add more emotional intensity to the habit, it links up the neurological wires a lot faster at an older and younger age.
Perfect. That's what I was going to confirm with you. So thank you for that. This has been like a fire hose. So like I've got a whole page of notes, and I'm still going to have to go back and listen to this 2 or 3 times to really sit down and take the steps that you've given everybody to map this out for myself and to identify all of these areas and exactly how I want to apply these techniques. And what I wanted to attempt to do, if it's possible, putting myself in the audience's shoes right now, I would say there's a fair chance that about 80% of the Self-Made Man audience are entrepreneurs, or they would like to be. They're in the process of becoming that. And using the 80-20 rule, I'm going to say 80% of them, are not yet full-time entrepreneurs. That is one of their primary goals. And I see a real opportunity here to provide them with a gift, of knowledge and experience here that can help them accomplish that goal. So if you could imagine, like you and I were, 10 years ago when we were first starting our businesses, we've got full-time jobs. This is a a vision and a desire of ours, down the road, and we want to reach that end goal of going full-time in our business. And yet life still tends to get in the way. We come home from our job, we're stressed out, we have more responsibilities, maybe with a spouse or kids involved. We're thinking about the challenges that we have at the job that we hate tomorrow. What is it that people can do in as simplified form as we possibly can today to help them create a routine or a habit system to bring around that discipline so that they can take small positive steps in their business on a daily basis that will allow them to reach that ultimate goal?
Sure. And is this any industry specific?
No,
or they would be all industries?
I'd say not. I think the challenge is how do you come home from routine A and set yourself up in a position to then go tackle challenge B when it comes to building your business and do it on a daily basis. For me, I've always told people that my business over the last 10 years has been built by laying 5 bricks a day. And for me, that's my daily task list of the 5 things that I want to get done that'll move my business forward on a daily basis. And that's what I've done for 10 years is just lay 5 bricks a day. So I've been able to do that. And I talk to students and mentoring students who are running into whatever challenges they have. They say they have the desire to do it. They've got a lot of other obstacles, again, with work, kids, or family. What is a routine, or how can they set up a routine on a little habit basis so that when they come home from work, they can set themselves up to successfully lay down 1, 2, 3 bricks a day that, are building their business that will eventually, over the course of a year, make, a huge result?
Based on the thought process that they know what to do, which is a big one. So I'm sure they'd go to you for that, or whatever company they're working with or business plan they're looking at. So as long as they know what to do, as far as tactical steps of building their business.
Going through a course, whatever it may be, sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So they know what to do. They know how to run their ads. They know how to get their clients. They know how to market, how to sell, how to run the actual business of their business. If they get that aspect, there's 2 routines that are really, really, really important to go through consistently. The first is having a way to amplify your emotions within who you are. And there's a specific process you go through, and there's a reason for each step, and I'll tell you what it is. And before I tell you that, I used this myself. There was a point in time when I was transitioning careers. I didn't really love what I was doing at one point. I decided to transition, and in the transition, I moved back home to my hometown in San Diego. I moved into the front den of a house. I had 3 roommates. I tried to have as low overhead as humanly possible for, to start off and build some capital. And I had built up some debt as well that I had to pay off. So I was trying to catch up from getting behind over a couple of years. And so at the time I had to get 3 jobs to pay the bills. And I was working, stuffing boxes in the warehouse. In one job, I was coaching people over the phone. In another job for a company on behalf of them. And then I was doing inside sales, so phone sales, for the third job to make some extra money. And at the exact same time, so working all 3 jobs throughout the days and weeks. And then I'd come home at night and I built my business on the side online. And so I have really close to home personal experience with what it takes to get through that period of time. And the first is just the understanding that it's a period of time if you work hard enough and stay focused. It can be your whole life if you don't, but it's a period of time if you really stay focused. Now, 2 things. Number 1, right when you get done. So throughout the day, actually, I always say start your day like this, but let's say you didn't. You went through the whole day. You're coming home. You're like, I'm exhausted. There was so much going on. The very first thing you have to do is you have to reset yourself. And I ideally do this first thing in the morning to set up the whole day. Worst case scenario, reset yourself when you get home from a long day's work. You work 2-3 different jobs. You get home. It's 8 o'clock at night. You're exhausted. You got to reset. First thing you do, go for a walk. If you have an awesome treadmill desk like I do, walk on your treadmill desk. If you don't, get outside, start moving. No excuse. There's always a way to walk. Go for a walk. On that walk, start breathing. You want to get deep diaphragmatic breathing going. And the reason for this is ideally you want to get yourself out of your peripheral nervous system or out of your fight or flight nervous, the peripheral nervous system and into your body, into your center. So you need to clear your nervous system. And the reason that happens throughout the day is we have so many stressors that build up throughout time that it causes us literally to start going emotionally into the fight or flight zone, which is our reptilian brain kicking in, which is our body just wanting to either run away or fight what's going on and stand up for ourselves. You need to get out of that because you need to start fresh. So it's like an Etch-a-Sketch where you shake it, you need to go for a walk, start breathing, and reset your nervous system. There's many different breath patterns you can use. A really simple one is, actually I'll give you two from a breath expert I learned from. One is a continuous revolving breath with no pauses. So as you're walking, breathe all the way in, breathe all the way out, breathe all the way in, breathe all the way out, breathe all the way in, breathe all the way out. No pauses whatsoever. Not even a slight pause, not a hesitation, just constant breath. Do it for a minute. Second breath, breathe all the way in, hold it at the top, like hold it. And then literally allow your shoulders, your body, your head to like shrug, just drop the whole breath out, just open mouth, like a whole breath comes out. And literally do a giant like shrug where you just drop your shoulders, you drop your head, you drop your body. And again, that's a resetting your nervous system. Do that for like 30 seconds. So breathe all the way in, breathe all the way in, breathe all the way in, drop it. Breathe all the way in, all the way in, drop it. And it's resetting your nervous system. The final one, which comes from an ex-Navy SEAL, this is how he gets his mind to really stay laser focused under immense pressure. He called it box breathing. So if you imagine you're breathing around the edges of a box, it's 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds out, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it in for 4 seconds, out, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it out for 4 seconds, and you repeat the process for like a minute. Do those three or any one of those three breath movements for about 1 to 3 minutes total. It'll reset your nervous system. Second piece, now that you're moving and breathing, the second piece you're going to want to do is you're going to want to flood your mind with everything you're grateful for in your life. Now, gratitude resets your emotional nervous system. Like the breath resets your physiological nervous system. This one's going to reset your emotions. Because throughout the day, you're going to pick up some emotional poison, stuff that pissed you off, stuff that frustrated you, people that said stuff you didn't like, a project that didn't work out, someone who canceled their order, whatever happened. You need to reset that and like scrub out all that negativity by flooding it with gratitude. And when you think about what you're really grateful for and you feel it, you can't, none of that negativity, none of that other stuff, the fear, the pain, the upset, the angst, any of that can't exist because you create so much fullness of gratitude that you squish out any of that negativity or fear or anger or whatever it was. Now, once you're filled up with gratitude, now you want to set the emotional foundation by getting crystal clear and voicing out loud everything you're about to make happen. So voice your vision for your life out loud. You know, my 20-year vision for my life. I'm so grateful that I'm about to achieve this. I'm so grateful. And my thought is something we talk about in our book, the major categories of life. So you want to focus on the majors, your health, your emotions, your business, your finance, your family, that stuff. And state 1 or 2 major goals for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, 6 months out loud. So you really feel it in each category of your life. And now by that point, you should be emotionally almost on fire. So that's how to reset your nervous system when you first get home. Then we want to give you a very specific formula to like, not only once you reset, we need to get you laser focused and driven to action. So this is an old formula I used, 7, 8 years ago now. I first started using this. And so the first is you have to get crystal clear on exactly what you want. And you want this written down on paper so you could read it aloud to yourself. So number 1, what do you want? Get crystal clear on exactly what you want to achieve in this business that you're about to start working on. Number 2, you have to have a really, really potent and powerful reason why you're doing this. Now, whenever I do this exercise with people, inevitably they say something like, well, the reason why I'm doing this is for my family so that I can finally help my parents not have to worry about money and so that, I can experience the richness of life. That's not a compelling reason why. Like those reasons are compelling and yes, they are important. But when you say it like that, there's no emotion in your body. There's no come hell or high water. I'm going to make this or my life depends on it. None of that exists. It's like, oh, yay, I'm excited. Not. So you need to get pumped. You need to have this something written down, no matter what it is to you, where it's the equivalent of like going on literally like a 60-second rant of all the reasons why you're about to make this happen. It would sound something like this. What do I want? I want to achieve $100 million in the next 20 years of my life. Why? To prove that it's possible, to show what I'm made of, to give to my church, to give to my family, to provide schools, to educate 10,000 children around the world, to be able to make a difference in a hospital, to be able to fund a hospital personally in Uganda, to be able to, and you just go on a rant like that. so that there's so many reasons driving it that even if 20 of them don't work today, one of them still does. That's why you want many reasons, because some days that reason won't really matter to you. But if you have 50 of them or 100 of them, one of them is going to work every day. So second, once you know exactly why, the third piece is you have to know, what is your action plan? This is where that tactical point I talked about earlier has to be in place. You have to know the tactical steps of what to do. If you happen to be in the coaching industry, I have very consistent tactical tips I could show you on exactly how to find and enroll a new client. Simple. I've done it for 12 years. I can show you exactly how to do it. It's very tactical, very simple. You just follow the steps. If you're enrolling someone, and it's kind of true if you look at marketing or sales, they're pretty consistent, but that might not be your role. Maybe your content creation. So wherever your focus is, you want to have tactical steps of exactly how you're going to go about achieving what it is you're going to do. The next piece is you need to start mentally rehearsing yourself taking these actions. Now, there's a difference between mental rehearsal and visualization. Visualization is like the secret, happy, everything turns out perfect in my mind and I see it happening exactly as I'd like and it's exciting. Mental rehearsal is like real deal. You're in the field, you see yourself taking action, you see the good stuff happening, and you also see the bad stuff happening. You see any obstacle showing up, except for in mental rehearsal, you do not get defeated by the bad stuff. You see yourself momentarily get set back, and then once you're momentarily set back, you see yourself take a deep breath, refocus, and successfully make it through the challenge. The equivalent of this is boxing. If you were just visualizing a perfect boxing match, you would land all your punches and the other person would never touch you. That's unrealistic and not how it works. If you're a boxer, you're going to get punched and it's going to hurt. So it's part of life. It's part of the game. You got to mentally rehearse it. You got to see yourself landing your punch. You got to see yourself taking a punch. You got to see yourself breathing through it and moving successfully on and landing the next one. And you got to see that happening so you're so prepared that when it happens, it doesn't even stun you. It feels like it's just part of your normal routine. Versus if you just visualize all the happy stuff, the moment someone or life lands a punch on you, it stuns you and many times knocks you out of the game because you aren't prepared for it. So we want to mentally rehearse what's about to happen. From there, next step, you're just going to go take crazy amounts of action. And by this time, once you've mentally rehearsed it, once you've dug into your big reason why, once you have that crystal clear vision, you should be on fire. So you get to the action part, you go nuts. You just start taking action like crazy. Couple more steps you're going to want to use along the journey. The next one, I forgot what number one. The next step, you're going to want to measure and fine tune. You're going to want to keep track of your actual results. If you're on the phone dialing for dollars, keep track of how many calls, keep track of how many conversions. If you're writing books, a page by page for your book, keep track of how many pages you get through and how much time. I don't know what else you'd be doing, but whatever else you're doing, keep track of the actual progress you're making. And every so often, check back in and look for if you can update it. This last hour, I did 10 pages of writing. Next hour, let's see if I can do 15. Let's see if I can step up my game. An hour goes by, check in. I did 12. It wasn't 15, but 2 more than I did the hour before. That's awesome. Let's see if I can do 13 next hour. Okay, let's do it again. And you're constantly measuring and updating your approach to see if you can get better results hour by hour. This next step is interesting. When you're past the point of measuring and fine-tuning, there's a place where people who get this step just get it. People who don't always give me like that Scooby-Doo response, which is you want to allow divine grace to handle the rest. Meaning when you're in crazy action-taking mode and you're working, there has to be an element of faith. And I'm not saying it's a specific religious faith. It's just faith. It's belief in the fact that if you work hard enough and you stay focused long enough, it's going to work out. That kind of positive faith you need underlying what you're doing. Because there's going to be days when you work your tail off and nothing turns out in your favor. And you got to have that faith.
Absolutely.
And then the final step, you got to celebrate like crazy when it works.
Very cool, brother. This has been like drinking from a fire hose.
So go listen to this like 4 times, write it all down, and use all the systems.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is unbelievable. So once they have a handle on this, is there a certain time frame that they should set as a goal initially? Should they have a first goal to do this every day for 7 days or 30 days, or does that matter? Is it just start doing it? What would you say on that in that regard?
I mean, there's so many fallacies in psychology where people say it takes 30 days to make a habit. It takes 40 days, it takes 72.
Right.
I haven't seen any studies where it empirically states this is the fact of how long it takes. What I do know is the more emotional intensity you add to it, the faster you pick it up. The best example I have of this, and it's honestly not my favorite example because I don't believe in this kind of testing, but they took an animal, they put it in a lab, and they took a monkey actually, and they taped down the monkey's fingers except for its index finger, the pointer, it had it just up. And they had a machine, and they had that machine bend the monkey's finger 10,000 times. And then what happens when they stopped the machine and they untaped all the other fingers, that index finger just kept going up and down, 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 because they'd done it so many times that it became literally neurologically wired in the monkey to just keep doing that with its finger. Now, they did the exact same study, except for this time they put a little probe in the pleasure center of the monkey's brain. And every single time they bent the finger once, they sent a little shot of electricity to the pleasure center of the monkey's brain. Now they did it like 100 times with a little electric probe of pleasure in its brain. They untaped the fingers, let it go. And after just 100 times with a little electric probe, it kept doing it automatically, just like 10,000 times. Now they tried turning up the amount of shock that would hit that pleasure center of the brain. They did it 10 times with maximum intensity on the pleasure center of the brain. All of a sudden, it kept going like 10,000 times, and all they did it was 10.
Wow.
So the more pleasure you can turn on in your brain, the more you can activate, the more intensity you can add to it emotionally, the longer it's going to last. An example of this, my dad does this at his events, where he'll take somebody and he'll help them create a positive, powerful, emotional anchor. And he'll do this with them for only 2 days. Now, what's interesting is if I run into anyone who's been to one of my dad's events, there's a very specific thing where you just say yes to them, and they'll squeeze their fist, they'll scream yes, and all of a sudden they'll set off all the triggers, and they might not have been at that event for 25 years.
Wow.
And so it lasts because of the intensity at which he helps build it into their nervous system. And so it's that same thought process. If you want to really anchor this in and really get this in, the more emotional intensity you add to it, the faster it links up in your brain. Because what happens is now you're using both lobes of your brain, the logical side and the emotional side. And when that connects, it lasts for a lifetime. Another way to think about this, it happens in women's brains all the time automatically. And you know that old phrase, like women never forget? This is why. They use both sides of their brain. When you do something, the logical side remembers exactly what you did, and the emotional side goes and links it up, and bam, they remember it for a lifetime. It could be like 30 years later, and they're like, remember that one time you said that to me? You're like, holy shit, when was that? We were like 12 or something, right?
Right.
And they still remember it. You're like 50. Same thing, because they activated both lobes. So when you can activate the emotional side and the logical side and link it in, you can anchor stuff in so quickly.
Well, Jairek, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on this topic today. This is definitely one of the most valuable episodes that we've ever had here, and I can't wait to go back and dive in and really map out, this process for myself, which is going to be awesome. So thank you so much. And where can listeners go either find out more about you and your work or work with you? What is one of the best ways for people to follow you and get in touch?
Probably our website, just JarekRobbins.com. If you're having trouble spelling that, just Google Jairek Robbins to the best of your ability, and it'll pull up all our stuff.
Cool. Awesome. And do you have a specialized, what is your primary way of interacting with your clients? Is it coaching? Is it books? Is it courses? How can people really dive into the success that you've had with these processes and really acquire them for themselves?
A lot of our stuff is customized for people. Everything from our speaking to our one-on-one coaching, we really truly customize it to the individual we're working with. it does require a bit of a budget to work with us at those levels. For people who just want to get a sample of what we're about, obviously my book is Live It, Achieve Success by Living with Purpose. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $7 or $10 or something. So you can grab it and use all the formulas we've broken down in there. I always think of that book as kind of like just an action manual.
Awesome.
Each chapter has a specific action to take and it leads into the next.
Very cool.
Or you're welcome to grab our 30-day online coaching program, which again is a fire hose version of just tool after tool after tool of exactly how to maximize your personal performance.
Well, Jairek Robbins, thank you so much for your time today. This was amazing, and we'll look forward to having you hopefully on again in the future, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man.
Crank it up.